What you permit, you promote. If you want to see different results, you are going to have to start moving differently. As the saying goes, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. The kinds of bad behaviors you permit from men will only continue to persist if you do not stop accepting them in the first place. And if these men cannot stand the heat, then they are more than welcome to see themselves out of the kitchen. Hello, Ethereal Beauties, and welcome back, or welcome to the wonderful Ethereal world. Thank you all so much for all the support on the channel. Excuse me if my voice sounds weird. I am getting over a cold, but I can't believe we're almost at 1,000 Ethereal Beauties. That just blows my mind, and I can't wait to see this community grow over time. So this video is part 2 in a series all about keeping your standards high. And if you haven't already, please go watch the first video, which I'll have linked in the description as well as pinned in the comments. And once you've finished giving that one a listen, head back over here for today's topic, which is all about how to navigate the dating world and hold firm with your standards and boundaries. Now, this is the only time that I will be making this disclaimer. I know it's 2025 and there is a mass movement of young ladies who have completely removed themselves and have opted out of the dating world, and that is completely valid. So if this topic is irrelevant to you and dating is not something that you are choosing to partake in or make part of your life in 2025 or until further notice, then I completely understand. In the meantime, there is plenty of content on the channel to catch up on that does not have anything to do whatsoever with dating or men, so please feel free to enjoy the other videos. For my ladies who have recently decided to either enter or re-enter the dating game, or have been playing for a while but aren't having any luck and can't seem to figure out why, then perhaps this is the right video for you. This is the perfect thing to listen to while at the gym, running your errands, or my favorite way to enjoy content like this, indulging in some self-care like meal prepping for the week or doing my nails with a face mask on. So with that being said, let's get into the discussion because I have plenty to say about this topic. I will be giving harsh truths, sharing my real experiences, and giving you ideas of some standards that you could also implement into your dating life. And of course, this is all my opinion, and you are all intelligent enough ladies to know to take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what the purpose of dating actually is? Forget what anyone has told you and know this. Dating is data. You collect data about yourself, about the way men operate and male nature, and most importantly, what you do and do not like. But data is no good if the way that it's being collected is in a corrupt and haphazard manner. So that's why we must keep our standards high and our boundaries airtight to ensure that we don't get played by these men or let them waste our precious time, or even worse, let them stress us out. Especially if you are a beautiful woman, which all the ladies who watch this channel are, men will not hesitate to waste your time. They will leave you in a talking stage for days, weeks, and sometimes even months on end without so much as a real commitment, or sometimes without asking you on a proper date, just so they can go brag to their male counterparts about how they got you, the pretty girl, to settle for his crumbs. Well, ladies, I say no more. In 2025 and beyond, we will no longer be settling for crumbs. Now, I know that there are some schools of thought out there, mostly of the religious variety, that are very openly against dating unless you have the intention of getting married. And to be clear, I'm not bashing any religion or faith belief, but for the most part, that is what is taught, which I think is completely valid, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if that is the kind of content that you're looking for, there are plenty of great faith-based YouTubers on here who discuss that topic, but that is not the content that I plan to make here. In that same vein, just because something you're doing does not serve the same purpose as it does for someone else, doesn't mean your reasons behind doing so are bad, wrong, invalid, or a waste of time. When I first entered the dating world around 21, I took it way too seriously. I was looking for a potential future husband. I would try to convince myself that that wasn't what I was doing, and I think that was the issue. I wasn't having fun. If things didn't end up working out with a guy, or if I went on a first date and there wasn't as much chemistry as I'd hoped there'd be, I would go home feeling upset and even defeated. It wasn't until I shifted my mindset and really made sure that I was clear about my reasons for dating that I started to truly enjoy it. I look at dating as serving different purposes depending on which stage of life you're in. And since I'm only about to enter my mid-20s and have gone through my early 20s, that is the age range that I will be discussing since I have yet to experience dating at any other age. So before you enter yourself into the dating game, you want to really ask yourself why you're choosing to date in the first place. As a wise woman once said, men don't understand why a woman would choose to be single by choice because men are never single by choice. This just goes to show that as women, we are truly independent and we can be fulfilled in our lives without a man or a romantic relationship. And knowing your reasons for putting yourself out into the dating world will be like a light on a dim path as you navigate the scene. Do you want to date because you're looking to be spoiled? Are you dating because you just want to practice your flirting and conversation skills with men? Do you have a bunch of cute clothes in your closet that you never get the opportunity to wear, so going on dates is the perfect place to showcase them? Are you actually looking to find a long-term relationship that will eventually turn into marriage? Whatever your reasons are, they're valid and they are your reasons. But I will say, in my opinion, if you are between the ages of 18 to 25, the only reasons I believe you should be dating is to practice putting yourself out there, to flirt, meet new people, make connections, and just have fun in general. And by fun, I do not mean of the explicit variety, but I will touch on that later in the video. Especially if you are dating men who are close in age to you, for the most part, they are not looking to settle down or get married. There are some exceptions, but that is not the rule. And to be honest, I used to be very much so against that sentiment, but I've come to realize that that is just male nature. So instead of going against it, I decided to go with it and get anything and everything I want out of my dating experience. And to be honest, the more I thought about it, I don't want to be married just yet. I am so young. I have so much I want to accomplish and see while I'm single before I commit myself to being attached to someone else's life. Because yes, deciding to be married is a big life decision, arguably the most important life decision that I personally think people take too lightly. Ladies, dating is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be excited to go on dates. You're supposed to be excited while messaging on the app or over text. You're supposed to be excited to see where he takes you. Now, being excited does not mean that you are attached to the man or the situation. I actually do want to do a video about how I practice what I call detached dating. So if that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to subscribe. So if your dating life is bringing you stress, worry, or anxiety, then maybe that is a sign to take a break, focus completely on yourself, and maybe revisit it at a later time. Trust me, men aren't going anywhere. Men make up 80% of the people on dating apps anyways, so always remember that there are more of them looking for us than there is us looking for them. So once you have a reason behind why you want to date, you need different methods to go about it. And personally, I say try all the methods and figure out what works best for you. Try the apps. I personally only use Hinge because I've noticed that I just match with more quality guys on there, more clean cut, stable jobs, normal, like regular guys. And of course, there is bottom of the barrel on there too, because it is an app that anyone has access to. But I tend to find better quality guys on there. And I know some of my friends have had success on Bumble, but personally, I'm too much of a princess to match with a man first. So Bumble is kind of out of the question for me. But the key is to find what works for you again, like I said. And I'm gonna be completely honest, the apps are not my first choice. I actually prefer to meet guys in person. But the thing is, I never get approached. No, I don't have an RBF. I go out to co-ed spaces like group dinners, networking events, and bars, But I've been told by many guys that I come across as intimidating. Like, I've gone on dates with guys from Hinge and they've told me, without me asking by the way, that if they had seen me in person, that they would have never come up to talk to me. And I don't know what it is. I'm only 5'1". I don't have an RPF. I'm really sweet. So I'm just gonna chalk it up to my Capricorn rising. But anyways, I found that I might as well be Princess Diana on the apps because that's just where I find guys I tend to be more compatible with anyway. And for clarification, I do engage in roster dating. I actually use the Olympic medal system. So I have a gold medalist, a silver medalist, and then a bronze one. And I keep track in my phone notes like a psychopath. It's just a fun little way to do it. And I know some girls might find roster dating exhausting, but I think the key is to not take it too seriously, all the while sticking to your standards and boundaries. So once a guy does something that I don't agree with, or that crosses one of my boundaries, I just simply remove him from the roster and see myself out of the situation. No harm, no foul, and just keep it moving. So now I want to give you a glimpse into how exactly I go about using the apps and my method for not getting quote-unquote stuck in a talking stage. And let me just say this. Ladies, whether or not you get stuck in a talking stage with a guy is completely up to you. Like I said, what you permit, you promote. You do not owe any of these men anything, let alone your time. And if he just wants to chat back and forth without asking you out, and basically treating you like a pen pal because he has nothing better to do with his time, it is completely up to you as to whether or not you allow that to continue. So step 1 is obviously getting matches. I personally never scroll through the app looking for men to match for. I let them like my photos and let them comment on my profile. I believe in being fully in my feminine and not chasing whatsoever. And some people might not consider just liking a guy's photo as chasing, and that's all good and well, but personally I do, so that's just not something that I do. And now that doesn't mean that I match with every guy who likes my profile, because I'll let you in on a little secret. Men swipe on everybody. And this is 100% true. I've corroborated this as I've asked my guy friends about this, and they told me that that's exactly what most, if not all, guys do. And if you look at it from the male perspective, it makes complete sense. They're basically casting a bunch of lines in the water to see which fish bite. And I've literally had a friend send me a screenshot of a message that she got on her profile from a guy. And then literally not even an hour later, I got the same exact message. So men are lazy and they will take the path of least resistance to optimize their choices and hopefully end up matching with a girl, because if you don't know already, men need us more than we need them. So once I get the matches, I go through the new ones once a day, usually around the time I get home from work and I'm eating my dinner. This way, I'm not on the app all day while I should be and can be focusing on other more important things in my life. So when I go through the matches, there are only 2 to 3 things that I'm looking for, and these are personal to me, by the way, but it's been working for me so far, and these are the things I'm looking for as I'm just dating for fun right now. So number 1 is that he has his job listed on his profile. So from my understanding, men usually take pride in their jobs and the work that they do, because that is usually the way in which they bring value to the world. It's similar to how as women, our physical appearance is our currency and how we bring value to the world. And I know how that sounds, and it may not be fair, but it is the truth. And because to me, if his occupation isn't listed, it makes me question what he's hiding. So the next thing I look for is whether or not he smokes or does substances. Personally, I'm not a smoker. I don't like the smell of smoking in any kind of way, so that is a non-negotiable for me, regardless of how attractive I think the guy looks. If it says that he smokes on his profile, it's an automatic no for me. And then the last thing I check for is whether or not he has clear photos or videos of himself on his profile. And not just clear, but like photos of just him. 1 or 2 group photos or with other people is fine, but I don't waste my time with profiles that have all group photos, or if his profile has a group photo as the first photo, because I've noticed that he's usually always the least attractive one in the group. Or I've noticed that a lot of guys will put a picture of him and one other friend, but the friend is always the more attractive one. And I'm usually always correct about the less attractive guy being the one whose profile it is. So I just don't waste my time with profiles that just have all group photos or group photos as the first photo, because I'm not trying to be a detective out here. I'm just trying to say yes or no and be on my way. So like I said, for me right now, I'm just dating for fun. I moved to a new city almost 6 months ago, but I was focused on my job and other things going on in my life, so dating was definitely not even on my radar. But I told myself that come the new year, dating will be something that I would like to be a part of my social life. And that's truly how I'm looking at dating right now, as just another way of socializing and more like a third sphere of my social life beyond my friends and beyond the workplace, especially at this age and stage of my life. So I've really let go of the whole I'm looking for a husband, or not even that, more like the I'm looking for a boyfriend, because in my opinion, it was kind of silly for me to set those kinds of expectations when I don't know what the future holds. I don't know when I'm going to come across my future husband. Maybe I already have, maybe I haven't yet, but that's not something that I can control. So I decided that I really just wanted to date for fun, get taken out to restaurants and bars that I have on my list, go do fun activities that my other friends maybe can't make it to or too busy to go to, and just get out of the house. Especially since it's winter, I really wanted an excuse to leave my house and get cute and dressed up to go places. I don't get seasonal depression, but I hate the winter and I hate being cold. But if I have something to look forward to, like a nice dinner date or going to a nice cocktail lounge, then I thought it might make the days go by faster, and so far it has. So as I said in the previous video, your standards and boundaries are yours, and they are not for anyone else. They should not take the feelings of others, in this context, especially the feelings of men that you don't know, into consideration. Your standards and boundaries are for your own safety and your own self-preservation. So I'll start by discussing my standards and boundaries as I'm matching with guys on the app before meeting them in person. So number 1, when I am messaging with a guy, I do not ask men out or even suggest that they ask me out. The reason I say I don't even suggest or hint at it is because we're on a dating app. Nobody's there to make friends or have a chat buddy. And honestly, to me, men who like to message back and forth for days on end is a huge red flag, because how do you have so much time to be on this app? Number 2 is if a guy doesn't ask me out after 2 to 3 days of chatting back and forth, then I will either stop replying to his message or completely unmatch. If I stop replying, then I'll see if by the next day, if he'll make a plan. But if he doesn't, then I'll just completely unmatch. So this is the time-wasting behavior that I was referring to. Believe it or not, a lot of men will keep you in a back-and-forth talking stage and drag their feet to actually ask you out or plan a date just so they can tell their friends, send them your profile, and show off by saying that he's got you hooked even though he hasn't even asked you out on a date yet. So if you're listening to this and you're currently stuck in a talking stage with a guy, this is your sign to stop replying and completely ghost him. Now, I'm not a big proponent of ghosting, but in this instance, I believe it's fully and completely justified. Simply do not reply. Ladies, we have better things to do than let men, or anybody for that matter, waste our precious time, because every minute counts. Leave that man alone and let him go find another girl's time to waste. Another thing that I do not tolerate is when a guy kinda sorta asks you out. Like, they'll say something along the lines of, we should plan something, or we should really meet up soon, or I'd really like to see you. And you agree, but then he doesn't proceed to plan anything. And this is what I call the concepts of a plan guy. In my opinion, men like this Men who expect you to help them plan the date or put you in a position to fully plan the date are in their princess era. And as a princess myself, I cannot be with another princess, so that does not work for me. Men are not dumb, and they know exactly what they are doing. They're trying to see how much you're willing to give them without having to do anything. Remember, ladies, men use us to boost their egos, not the other way around. There's a reason why the term is trophy wife and not trophy husband. And one more point about talking stages. I think a lot of girls get stuck in them because they're operating from a lack mindset. Well, yeah, if that's the only guy who's remotely showing interest in you, then you're more prone to be okay with being treated that way. But I don't hesitate to unmatch with a guy for any reason, because just as soon as I unmatch with one, there's another one, and in most cases multiple, in the queue ready for me to either accept or reject. I really wish more young ladies would wake up and realize just how much power we have as women. And the reason I don't feel bad or like I'm being mean when I enforce my standards and boundaries is because as women, we go through so much and do so much on a daily basis, from the time we're little girls to the time we're old. So it's not a big ask for a guy to fully plan the date, be respectful on the date, to pay for the date, and to make sure that you get home safe. So whenever you're about to let a guy's behavior slip below your standards, just remember all the things that we have to go through as women to just exist in this world. And then think about how men do not have the same struggles. I'm sure most men do not worry for their safety as much as we do as women. And if you think about it, why are we worried for our safety? Who is the reason for that? And real men, the kinds of guys you want to be with, will like that you have standards, and they'll like that you enforce your boundaries. Because guess what? Quality guys also have their own standards and their own boundaries as well. And the ones who don't can go be with the girls that will accept their substandard behavior. Water sinks to its own level, but it also rises to its own level. So if you don't want to be the kind of girl that guys treat any kind of way, don't treat yourself that way first. So the next standard, or rather boundary I have on the apps, is that I don't accept last minute dates. For me, I preferably like to be asked 2 to 4 days in advance, because I'm a busy girl with a schedule that I like to follow. I have an 8 to 6 job. Sometimes it turns into an 8 to 7. I go to the gym, I go to workout classes, I have plans with my friends, and I'm an introvert, so I need time to myself, and then I need time for my beauty maintenance activities as well. Getting my hair done, nail appointments, wax appointments. I need to go grocery shopping, I need to meal prep, clean my house and do my chores, run miscellaneous errands. So I schedule everything. And I understand that maybe some people might just be spontaneous and they enjoy doing things last minute. And that's great, but that's just not how I operate. And I know as a pretty girl, you probably don't operate that way either. And side note, I was speaking to somebody in my life about this and about how I think that it's really incompetent on the guy's part for not being able to plan a date in a timely manner. And you want to know the response that I got? Well, you can't expect everyone to think the same way you do. What if they're just spontaneous guys? You can't expect them to have it all together. Oh, and by the way, this was another woman. She was older. And I kid you not, this was just about planning a simple date. So this is why I'm so glad that we're building this community here of Ethereal Beauties who don't accept crumbs and poor behavior, first from ourselves, and then secondly from anyone else. I mean, it's no wonder that men continue to behave the way they do. It's because there's women out there who will accept this behavior, no problem, no questions asked, and just be happy that a guy's giving them attention in the first place. But I made a conscious choice to not be one of those girls, just as I'm sure you've also made a similar decision. So now onto my standards and boundaries for when I'm actually on the dates. So number 1 is that I do not drink more than 1 cocktail while on first and second dates. I am a lightweight, and while I can be okay with 2, I always just limit myself to 1, if any at all. And for the most part, usually on dates, I'll just get a Diet Coke or lemon water, and if I'm feeling like a cocktail, then I'll get one. I know everyone has their own personal boundaries when it comes to drinking, so do what works for you, but always have a limit so your judgment won't be impaired and you'll be cognizant enough to get yourself safely out of the situation if there's a need for it. So the next one is that I do not tell men where I live or where I work. Like, I'll say like a general area, like, yeah, I live downtown, or I live uptown, or I live over here, over there, but I'll never say specifically. I'm okay with them knowing my occupation and my job because it's not very specific, but I leave out any details like the name of the company I work for or the names of the people I work with, and this is strictly for safety purposes. So another safety thing I do is to always make sure that we're meeting in public spaces where other people can see us. I do not put myself in a position to be alone with men that I don't know under any circumstances. So this includes, but is not limited to, house dates, the come over and let me cook for you dates, or let's watch a movie and get a drink at my place dates. Sir, I do not need to see your place, okay? I know what a house or apartment looks like, and trust me, there is nothing special about a man's place. It is just a ploy to get you alone so he can pressure you into doing things you probably would not be comfortable with. Because if you think about it, why would a man invite a woman who is a perfect stranger into his house? He doesn't know you just as much as you don't know him. What if you're crazy, or have family members or friends of friends who could go after him? I mean, I'm joking, but I'm kind of not. Men will literally risk their own safety just to get access to a woman's body, because if he's asking you to come over and he barely knows you, then that is all he's after. As a woman, when you're dating, the number one question you should ask yourself is, does he make me feel safe? Because as we all know, anything can happen to anyone regardless of who you are or where you come from. It is always in your best interest to put your safety first above anything else. No matter how much you like the guy, no matter how much you're attracted to him, your safety should come first. And in that same line of thought on safety, I actually really appreciate when a guy asks to pay for my car home, but I always politely decline and let him know that it is for safety reasons, and usually they understand. So with this, my standard is that he must either ask me to text him that I got home safely, or he will text me after about 30 minutes after the date ended to ask if I got home safely. A man caring for my safety, especially as most dates take place at night, is a big, big green flag for me. Which is sad to say, but not all men care for your safety if they aren't going to get anything from you. So I was on a second date a few weeks ago, which the guy's ghosted me since because I declined going back to his place after he asked me both times on both dates. Anyways, at the end of the second date, we had both ordered Ubers because we lived on opposite sides of town. Now, I don't expect for a man to pay for my car home, especially on a first date, but my standard is that he at least waits with me while my car comes and makes sure that I get in safely before going on his way. And personally, I just think that it's basic chivalry and human kindness. Like, I do this with my girlfriends. Girls I don't know have waited with me while I wait for my car before, so it's really not asking for too much. Well, his car came first, and instead of being a gentleman and canceling his and waiting with me for mine, he proceeded to get into his car and leave me alone at almost midnight to wait another 10 minutes for my car to arrive. And of course, I just went back into the restaurant to wait for my car, but I am so glad he ghosted me because that is the exact kind of behavior that I do not put up with. And I think once he realized that I wasn't going to just give it up to him, he decided I wasn't worth the time and effort, which is actually the exact message I wanted to send. Another standard I have while on dates is that the guy must give me at least one compliment on my physical appearance. And this might sound shallow on the surface, but let me explain. Men know that as women, we put a lot of care and consideration into our appearances, especially for something like a first date or a date in general. And they may not know all the ins and outs and intricacies of the process, but they know it takes time. So the least a man could do, either while you first meet on the date or as you're chatting, is tell you that you look lovely tonight, or that he really likes the outfit you picked out. And I've asked guys that I know what it means if a guy doesn't compliment a girl, especially on a date, and all of them have consistently said that it means he thinks you're out of his league and he doesn't want you to think that you can do better than him, so he withholds a compliment. So ladies, I know this may sound immaterial and trivial, but notice if guys you go on dates with compliment you or not. I know not all women like their physical appearance being commented on. Personally, I do, especially if it's the appropriate setting to do so, like a date. Like, that wouldn't be an out-of-pocket thing for him to do. It's not like he's hollering at me from across the street. So if a guy doesn't compliment me, I'm either going to assume that he's just not attracted to me, or he's purposely withholding compliments because he thinks that I'm too pretty for him. Either way, that's not a guy that I want to be with, because as we all know, men like beautiful women, and they get elevated socially from being seen with a beautiful, put-together woman. People will make positive assumptions about him simply because it seems he's able to pull a woman of a certain caliber. So my last boundary while on dates is that I do not accept invitations back to a man's house, nor do I invite him to mine. Now, I know this can be a controversial topic, and every woman is free to do whatever she wants in this regard. Just make sure that you have clear and set boundaries, especially when it comes to this, and what you're willing to do and what you're not. I'd say even if you're 1% uncertain about whether you should go beyond a certain point, then the answer is no. But that is just my 2 cents on the topic and all I'm going to say. So another point, when it comes to your dating standards, do not, under any circumstances, let other women know what they are. Most women allow themselves to be treated poorly and get bare minimum treatment because the one guy who is giving them attention and validation is all they have. So when you let them know how high your standards are, I've noticed that they'll try to talk you out of them. They take your standards as a personal attack on their decisions. So if you're just chatting with your girlfriends or whoever and she asks you, what are you looking for in a guy? Just say this. Oh, just a guy who's kind and funny and who I'm compatible with. You know what everyone else is looking for. I highly caution against going into specifics and truly letting them in on how you choose to go about your dating process, especially if she is not on a level up journey or isn't already leveled up. Silence is golden, and we must keep our mouths shut and move in silence, especially when it comes to our dating and romantic lives. And not only should you not discuss your standards with other girls, but even more so, you shouldn't do it with the men that you date. Whether he meets your standards or not is none of his business, and I would not say anything to him about it. Men respond to actions, as I'm sure we can all attest to. So because of that, I do not chew men out for taking forever to ask me out on the apps, nor do I go on diatribes about them asking me out on last-minute dates. I simply do not reply or unmatch. You do not owe anyone an explanation, let alone a perfect stranger you may or may not have met a minimum of one time. But you do owe yourself peace of mind and your time back. So when it came to me starting to date in this phase of my life, I've actually been taking a page out of men's book. I've observed the way they operate in life, and I've noticed that men are very, very selfish and extremely self-preserving. They will do whatever they want, whenever they want, take whatever they want, and do it without remorse, all the while not taking into consideration the feelings of others. An example of this would be how I've noticed that men do not interact with and even go out of their way to avoid speaking to women that they don't find attractive if they don't have to. An exception would be like a work setting or something where they would need something from that woman. And of course, this self-preserving and selfish nature can go completely too far, but I think they're onto something. There is something to be said about putting yourself first and not allowing others to make you feel guilty about your personal standards and boundaries. Many men, I would venture to say a majority, if not all men, have the standards for themselves that they don't date or speak to women they find attractive. which is completely valid. I believe that everyone should go after exactly what they want. So just as a man shouldn't settle for a woman he's not attracted to, as women, we should not settle for men who treat us poorly or fall below what our standards are. And this is why I keep my standards high for the kinds of men I choose to engage with and allow to take me out. As women, we add so much value to this world and enrich the lives of so many people around us. And, the world takes us for granted. So I beg you, please don't take yourself for granted too. And yes, the higher your standards, the less men you will have as options. But I'm okay with that because I would rather easily weed them out using my standards than lower my standards just to end up wasting my time when I could have spent that time figuring out how to make more money or work on building this lovely community or get some beauty sleep, literally do anything else. And honestly, I'm having more fun dating now than I ever have because my standards and boundaries are rock solid. I make no exceptions for any guy. Once a guy does or says something that is outside the parameters of my standards, I do not hesitate to end things. Life is too short to waste your time trying to convince a man to treat you right. I am not a teacher. That is not what I got my degree in. So I will rather protect my peace, withhold my time and energy, and not engage with men who are clearly not on par with my standards. It's really that simple. And I've recently heard from girls my age that men need to be trained to behave correctly. And this was coming from girls in relationships. I mean, of course, to their faces, I agreed and pretended to relate, but that is the exact mentality that lands you in unfulfilling dynamics, relationships, and sometimes eventually marriages. Whatever you tolerate and accept up front, it's more likely than not just going to be downhill from there. I am not a dog trainer. That is not my occupation. And personally, I do not see men as dogs or animals, as I think that that's thinking too lowly of them. The reason I have the standards I do is because I know men can do better. I actually think very highly of men, but I do not accept or reward laziness or haphazard behavior. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And if a guy is inconsiderate or thoughtless in the initial dating stages, then there is no reason for me to believe that he would all of a sudden start doing more when I initially accepted less with no issues. And men like it when you're quote-unquote mean to them, because men, and just people in general, don't value what they can get so easily. Not to compare people to food, but that's the difference between going to get food at a fast food drive-thru versus sitting down at a Michelin star restaurant where you probably have to call a couple months in advance just to get a reservation. Just as we all can agree that there are different standards for how you must or even can show up to those places, there should be standards for what it takes to have access to you, your time, your energy, your beauty. Always remember to keep your standards high so you can keep the garbage out. So stay tuned for the next video where we'll discuss standards and boundaries for female friendships, which in my opinion should be even higher than for romantic connections. I'll talk to you next time, Ethereal Beauties.